Hello.
Hello.
This is Have You Done Music for have you done music yet? Is that the Yeah, that's the title. For June 26th, 2014. And we have not a lot of news to talk about really, but a lot of music. And that's a good
So
thing.
happy about this week. So happy.
Happier than I am.
Happier than John Domayan is, I'm pretty sure.
Almost
Want to dive into
certainly.
that? Want to dive into the news first? Because I mean, we can get that over with.
Yeah, let's do news first. News first, review second.
So, as most of you may know, System of a Down, very popular band in the olden days of like 10 years ago.
10 years
They haven't
exactly.
released an album. Oh, I'm
Since
sorry.
2005. Not bad.
Mm. Yeah, they haven't released an album in 9 years, and their drummer John Domayan is not very happy about that.
Coincidentally, he's the one with the least side projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Surge has been on his own, surge of solo projects with
and
varying degrees of
joining up
popularity and success,
and joining up with Tech Nine for that one song.
which was awesome.
Yes,
And Darren Malakian has had his heyday from Scars on Broadway, which lasted like
a month and a
an
half.
album, to anyway. Darren Malakian, on the other hand, really, really wants to play for South again. I've actually asked where their heads are at, where they're going, where they were going musically. He said about his bandmates, because it's important for me to know that. Then I can do some research on either the bands that were inspiring them at the time, so that I can kind of get in their headspace, or maybe even hear some of the material. But to date, I haven't heard any songs, with the exception of a few here and there, that I could really start kind of pointing the direction of my drumming in the future to meet. The other question of when we're going to be doing something. Your guess is as good as mine.
It's like listening to members
So,
of Tool who aren't who aren't Maynard talk. When are we gonna do something? I have no idea.
I
That's really unfortunate because we could use a new System album.
mean,
We
the thing
really
is,
could.
they're great friends. They've been together for a decade and some change. It's not like they have personal problems right now, because I mean, they've had their arguments in the past. But it's really just the fact that everyone has so many side projects. Everyone's just so busy doing one thing or another. They're trying to expand their repertoire. It's just, I don't know if we're ever going to get another Sound album. Because these guys, I mean, they've been around a while. They are coming up in their age. I'm pretty sure most of them are in their 40s at this point,
That
if
doesn't.
not their 50s.
Yeah, I just. Where's
Probably not their
Shavo?
50s, but they're,
I don't remember where
yeah.
Shavo is.
Shavo, I think, was with, I think it was with Darren on Scars on Broadway, but again, that lasted like one album and then petered out. And
Yeah.
I don't know where he is now.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Like outside of Surge, they're just kind of. Oh wait, Darren's on that. Darren's popped up because he was on. Wasn't he on the Linkin Park album?
Yeah, he was probably the best part of that album, actually.
Because he's the only good musician there. Oh. But yeah, like. I mean, I love metal, but we're kind of in a rut right now. System of a Down is not a band that ever that could. It'd be nice to have some new material from them.
Oh yeah.
It'd be something new.
I mean, I like Surge's solo work. I mean, Harakiri wasn't the most perfect album ever, but it was a lot better than his previous solo album, in my opinion. It still doesn't carry enough of the pulse out atmosphere to actually, I don't
Satiate
know.
the thirst.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I got that more from the Linkin Park album than I have from any other Surge album. But what you gonna do?
Yeah. Um, and more important news, uh, the UK singles chart is now going to take into account streaming.
But how are they going to do that?
Every 100 streams that are over 30 seconds now count as one purchase. And they are limiting it through user. which is going to be an
I really, really want to know how they came up with that number.
what 100.
100. Yeah.
It's probably through the math of it's using nice round numbers, but also just the math of oh, what's the word? Set revenue earned via streamed songs versus album purchases over there.
I suppose. I mean, me personally, like, there are some albums that I'll listen to on Spotify, because that's what counts, according to the article, among what counts. And I'll sometimes just listen to one album just once per song, or I'll like the album enough to add a few of the tracks to my favorites, but I will tend to only listen to those favorited tracks as opposed to the other tracks on the album.
Which is why it's the singles chart, not the albums chart.
Right.
Because, like, Billboard 200 would not do well with this.
Oh, God, no.
The Hot 100, though, I'm surprised it doesn't. Normally we're first in everything for music with regards to that shit. As I await some commenter telling me Napster was, like, Uruguayan or something.
Actually, you may not be far off, if I remember right. You're like, what, like, you're in some weird country.
But that's going to set an interesting precedent to how streaming's viewed, and a good precedent, because streaming does need to be in a better light.
It needs to be at least more considered more.
Yeah.
In regards to the habits of, in regards to listening habits.
Yeah, because it's taking up more and more of the ability. As someone who has a lot of interests, so many interests, there's a lot of albums I wish I could buy but can't because I'm busy spending money on other things, like food. Because one of these interests is living. But, more to the point, like, I read and play games and do a lot of things, so music's kind of, without the streaming services, music's hard to keep up with because albums are costing like $15-20.
Yeah.
And that's for the stuff I listen to.
There's some stuff I wanted to listen to that's cost like $45 to $50 to import overseas. You can't get your Japanese and Turkish rap in America, yo. You gotta, if you want the actual physical albums, you gotta buy it straight from the retailers. And that's usually domestic,
One of my
which is the other side of the planet.
one of the records, like physical records I wanted, was $200. And that was the cheaper one. It now sends to float around 500. But I can get that on CD for much cheaper. Now, yeah, so streaming has been a very important thing, and it's good that it's going to be considered more seriously. Is there any other news that you found? Because
I just found this.
there's news.
The whole Metallica Glastonbury. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. It's a British name. They have weird pronunciation rules, that kind of stuff. But you know how the whole James Hetfield being part of that hunting program, and Glastonbury was like, what? No, we don't like this. Apparently, the people who bought the tickets weren't very happy about that either. Because 4 in 5 people wanted to sell their Glastonbury tickets after Metallica was announced. So it's a sentiment shared by plenty in that venue, actually, which I honestly kind of was surprised at.
I mean, it could just be that they think Metallica sucks, which is a fair assessment now.
I don't think that's part of it at all. I mean, jokes or otherwise.
Mostly jokes, but yeah, like, it's kind of weird to hear other people talking about how big of tools that members of Metallica kinda tend to be.
pretty sure it's purely for the hunting angle.
Yeah, and that's James being a tool. Hetfield's kind of a douchebag. Sometimes. And that's one of those times. People don't like him, promoting hunting, but stuck in his ways and is gonna do it. What doesn't help is Lars saying, like, there are many people in the UK who think of hard rock as lower class music.
And honestly, that's actually not too far from the truth.
My issue with that is, since when have Metallica been hard rock?
I think he's just sort of lumping it in with the whole, like, harder than, say, Soundgarden. You can't really put a solid...
Like, who else is, like, if I'm remembering right, like, Iron Maiden's one of the other headliners at Glastonbury.
Right.
I mean, they're not the hardest sounding band there.
No, they're still...
But they're still metal.
Yeah.
But so what? Why is he making a statement about hard rock? You haven't made a hard rock album in 15, 20 years. And
Because
even
again,
then,
he's lumping in the definition of hard rock with anything that's kind of like, that's metal. It's something that some people do, and apparently Lars is one of them.
because he's an idiot.
No, it's just part of his view.
No, we can safely say Lars is an idiot, but that may not be the...
comment.
I would say it is.
I
But...
think you're just trying to beat a dead horse.
Possible.
On the hate Lars bandwagon.
I do hate him. Someone doesn't hate him, though.
I actually lost that article, but yeah, Avenged Sevenfold's drummer, who
I don't even
rest
know
in peace,
them.
the Rev, is not the Rev, but someone else. He is apparently so much of a fan of Mr. Ulrich that he's proclaimed him to be the best drummer in the world. And if I can find that album as you buy me time.
I want to know what other bands he listens to. Because if Lars Ulrich is the best drummer in the world, that means you've never heard.
Oh, he's actually got some interesting things to say about that. Aaron Illiday. Okay, Aaron Illiday. Recently spoke to Rhythm Magazine about the drummers who have shaped his style. That's mostly... Actually, that's kind of poignant because their last... Avenged Sevenfold's last album, Hail to the King, was described sort of as a proto-Metallica by a lot of critics and a few fans, actually. And it's honestly not hard to hear from that. But in so many ways, Lars really is the best metal drummer, Aaron said. He doesn't have the crazy shredding chops that a lot of drummers have, but he has the best stage presence of any drummer. He's out of his mind, but writes incredible parts for his music. He's the ring... Oh, no. You ready for this? I want to hear your thoughts on this one. He's the Ringo Starr of metal.
I don't know what that means.
He actually extrapolates. Ringo and Lars get the least amount of credit, but they are absolute geniuses.
No! Ringo was as notable as probably being the least creative member of the Beatles. It's him and George Harrison fighting that out. And even then, George Harrison played better parts than he did. Lars Ulrich has been outplayed and outwritten since 1982. Dave Lombardo played better and wrote better tracks and did everything. Lars can barely pick up a fucking any. What? What are you listening to, sir?
I think what he's going at is that since apparently the other members of Avenged Sevenfold didn't want him to play like the Rev, who was quite famous for being a proficient drummer himself, he actually did do a lot of the shreds and solos that Avenged Sevenfold's drumming style was famous for. The drumming on Hail to the King is a lot more subtle, more subdued. It's
So
more
they
like
didn't want to
mostly-
play him, want him to play like a good drummer.
They wanted him to fill in the holes in the music with drumming, which is essentially what Lars does in Metallica. He fills in the holes with
But
basically more rhythm.
all I'm
And
really
so Aaron was not very happy about that at first, but after listening to more of Lars, apparently was more acclimated to that and found some sort of hidden genius in that, which, I mean,
there's no genius.
if
in
you're thinking of
Lars
stuff
Ulrich.
like, okay, like, thinking of marching band sort of styles, I mean, the drumming is there to, in some places, fill the holes, in other places, to establish the rhythm. In metal, that's not always the case, but with Metallica and apparently now with Avenged Sevenfold, that's more of the case.
What I'm
It's
hearing
more of a
right
standardized musical structure.
what I'm hearing right now is that I'm going
Yeah.
if I were to listen to the Avenged Sevenfold album, I would fucking hate it.
It doesn't break new ground, although I do like a lot of the tracks on there. It's a lot more refreshing to hear that than Nightmare, which was
Awful.
anyway. M Shadow Screams. It's not very good. I don't
Forward
know what happened there.
4-word review. 5-word review. M Shadow Scream, 0 stars. Alright. Alright.
I'm trying to get better music strats.
Do we have any other news? Has anything actually happened besides, like, people ripping from an article that maybe a few... I don't know how old the interview is, but Bruce Dickinson's been on a streak of bad-mouthing damn near everyone. And they finally got a punk band finally replied.
Well,
Yeah, the Dead Kennedys said that there's no way he's ever heard East Bay Ray play if he thinks that none of them can play their instruments. And they're right. They're absolutely right.
Pew, 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 pew. Shots fired.
It's not shots fired. It's Dead Kennedys. If they were gonna shoot fucking shots, it'd be way more obvious. But,
Well,
like...
I guess to round it out, we could have something a little bit more depressing. You want to hear it?
Yes.
Anthrax James, Bring the Noise.
With
Okay,
Limp
now that's
Bizkit.
pretty good. That's pretty good.
With Limp Bizkit.
hmm
Oh wow, it's jamming. I mean, who gives... that shit happens. Good artists have worked with bad artists since the 50s. Probably
Although
before the...
Scott Ian does make an interesting note about Bring the Noise as a whole. 25 years on, by that point, there was a new audience, and we certainly reached a lot of new people with that Public Enemy track. So that track crossed over for us and took us into a new zone. But it's funny, because we haven't done anything rap or crossover since Bring the Noise, and people once again still talk about it, which shows me how special it was.
I always thought it resonated more with, like, Public Enemy fans than Anthrax fans.
I mean, well, thing is, Scott Ian's been on record that he's actually quite a big fan of rap, that
Yeah,
he is-
like, he goes on record almost yearly to say what my favorite rap band is. My favorite rap artist is Public Enemy.
and it's like, it's one of the tracks that helped sort of unify the fan bases for at least a little bit. Until the rise of gangster rap kind of split them off again. But, I mean, obviously we've had that sort of influence grow throughout the decades into rap rock, new metal, all that sort of stuff. They prove that the two genres could blend in quite seamlessly, and there you go.
Speaking of rap, you got to choose our album of the week,
Mm-hmm.
and you chose The Roots, and then you shoot your cousin.
Ellipses! And then you shoot your cousin. Ellipses is very important.
Why
Because no one knows what the heck is supposed to follow from that.
and then you
What
shoot
comes
your...
before? I mean, I'm sure that's a point. It's so hard.
Hold my beer!
and then you shoot your cousin.
That's how it would happen in my family. Hold this and
Okay,
watch.
so you asked me to recommend a rap album, and with kind of flailing around, I was like, oh yeah, there was a rap album that came out a few weeks before this point. The Roots had a new album called And Then You Shoot Your Cousin. I listened to it, and spoilers, I love the Roots. I love Phrenology. I love How I Got Over.
This album was the most boring piece of shit you could have possibly recommended.
Yeah, it was.
Like, I remember...
need to actually get a album or be recommended an album that does not suck, because I am getting... it's not a very good streak so far. Or maybe I should have spent more than 5 seconds looking for an album for you to listen to. From 2000... Rap album from 2014, too. Like, who else? Like...
Kanye West?
Oh, no.
I would have liked that.
I wouldn't have. Ay, ay, ay.
You're just a hater.
No, what I should have recommended to you was Future's last album.
Oh, sweet
I'm
God.
sure that would have gone over so well. We would have had such a nice laugh. That would have been amazing. The guy can't sing, the guy can't rap, he doesn't have good beats. Why is he even around? He's just a featurette on like 14 other artists' tracks.
This is how boring the Roots album is. We're more interested in
We don't
talking
even
about...
talk about the
We're
album.
more interested in talking about Future.
Yeah.
Because there
At least
is...
Future would make an album funny.
At
with
least
how
I remember something he said on it. If
No,
we...
he won a trophy. He won a trophy. Because his girl's like a trophy. He won.
I remember that! I don't remember a single goddamn line on the Roots album. There's nothing like kill you or fuck the police or anything
Here's
good
the thing.
to
Roots-
remember.
I need to actually like give you an actual Roots album to give a comparison point. But the Roots, for those who aren't aware,
I don't even
are
remember
more-
musically
they are
inclined.
they get a lot of their inspiration, a lot of their instruments from the jazz genre. They are a sort of jazz rap group, and they've been doing this for quite a while now, and they're actually one of the most popular bands in their genre. Very well liked for a lot of different reasons. Usually their albums are not like this, where they add a lot of featurettes and where they have a lot of instruments. Because even though the instruments are very important in their music, it's usually still about how the rhyme is, how the rhymes are, how the flow is. Because their main lyricist is really freaking good at what he does. But they don't take advantage of that here.
There's a lot of half-baked musical ideas, a lot of...
It's an experimental concept album, and it shows.
There's a desperate attempt musically to be a, to get like, to start playing like Sun Ra or Chick Corea at a few points.
Mm.
And that's the fact that I actually listen to jazz coming out. But like with the piano especially, there's a desperate attempt for some like actual jazz coming out, and I don't know what the fuck they were thinking, because it's honestly the only memorable part of the album, which is why I can even talk about it.
That's because there's a lot of piano in that album, actually.
Yeah, it's the it's the only thing that sticks to anywhere.
I will say Underground as a track is actually really freaking good. It's probably the one with the most substance in the album, and was a lot of the what makes the Roots actually as allotted as they are.
Yeah, I'd heard so many good things about the Roots, and then this, and
That's not an example of their best work. If you want to listen to Phrenology or How I Got Over.
Yeah, when we were talking a bit earlier before this, and I said something to the effect, it's like introducing someone to Eminem by having them listen to Relapse. Or something, or like...
Yeah.
It's not a very good product in general, but it's a very awful product from that. It's like handing someone a copy of Reload and going, here's what Metallica sounds like.
Sound boring and tired. I actually don't mind Reload too much, but
It does have a good starting track.
It does.
But that was such a boring album that I don't have much to say about it besides I can't. I listened to it like yesterday and I don't remember a single track on it. Did you listen to anything memorable today? This week?
Ah, yes. 2 albums came out in the beginning of this week. The first one I'll go over because it's a little less dear, I guess, to my heart, but I still liked it a lot. Septic Flesh's Titan.
I'm gonna cut in here and say I probably won't have a lot to say because these are not bands or genre or that I particularly
I get
listen
the
to.
floor with this one. It's so good.
Yeah, you get to talk about nice things, and then I get to do something important.
Septic Flesh is a Greek symphonic death metal band with a little bit of a black metal influence on some of their tracks, especially in their older albums. But on their past 3 albums, they have had an actual full orchestra on quite a few of their tracks. In fact, on this one, it's pretty much all of them. And I am a sucker for that kind of sound, quite a bit. So I was listening to previews of the album, and a lot of the complaints were that it was kind of mixed weird. I kind of noticed that in a few of the tracks where it seems like the volume on the vocals and some of the guitars are a little low. And, well, to be quite honest, it's kind of my only complaint about the album. A lot of the tracks sound really freaking good, especially Prototype, which I've been listening to on a loop for the past couple days. It's a really solid hallmark of what how you can put a symphonic influence on something like death metal, especially with how the vocals are sort of their own instrument in a lot of metal. You can really take advantage of that with the orchestra, with how you can sort of use sort of the harmony of the orchestra, the chaos of the guitars and the vocals. It really shines here, and it's become one of my favorite albums of this year, actually. Which then leads me into probably my favorite album of 2014, Mastodon's One More Trip Around the Sun.
You are a mark for Mastodon.
I will consider Mastodon's Crack the Sky to be the perfect album. I have listened to it so many times and I can find no flaws in it. I literally think it's a perfect album. It's wonderfully constructed. It's only 7 tracks, but it tells a very unique story in a very just humbling sort of oral, I think it's pronounced oral manner. So just absolutely perfect. And so they've released a couple albums since then. The Hunter, which I also like almost as much. It's not quite to that sort of level, but it's still really good. And one that sort of follows the Hunter's sort of system a little bit, though it dials it back just a little bit more. Once More Around the Sun, which is a bit more of a, again, more of a structured album, more of a general sludge, southern dirty rock album. And it's really, really good. Again, count me as a mark for Mastodon as you will, but it's still a lot more of what we wanted from the band, and done in such a professional way. It's all the tempo changes are there, all the sounds are there, the drumming is exceptional as always.
You get to actually talk about albums you want to listen to. I get to sit here and wait for news on the new Tool album, a new Cannibal Corpse album, the new Exodus album. I feel sorry for Gary Holt. Like, this is something that's completely meaningless to the conversation, but they just announced that Exodus and Slayer are going on tour with each other, and a third band that doesn't matter because that basically just says Gary Holt's on stage for both the Slayer set and then the Exodus set, or vice versa, or whatever.
It doesn't matter. It's gonna be amazing.
The fact that he's gonna be premiering new songs with both bands.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
He's going to, because he already has said that he has a shitload of material written for Exodus. He's been working on the new Slayer album, which I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for pretty much I have to sit here and wait for all the far more extreme and interesting albums, while you get to sit here and talk about your fucking sludge metal.
I love my sludge.
I just want to listen. I want another Sphinx tour.
Speaking of Sphinx, I wonder when Melikesh is going to release another album.
That's not what I said.
It was close to what you said. Oh, I heard Sphinx. I was like, oh.
No, Sphinctor. You know, like the sphincter?
Yeah, that's nice. Anyway.
Alright, looks like we actually have a bit of a short cast this week, because, well, not a lot really happened news-wise. We got the...
Yeah, we couldn't have our 15-minute discussion on royalties and all that nonsense.
Yeah. And album-wise, we managed to choose Boring McBoring, and then I boringed my boring. So, yeah. Next week, though, I'll at least have a lot to talk about, because I get to choose the album.
Oh, boy!
Yeah. Another thing about it I can do is talk about a song from my youth in a moment, but first,
I was actually wondering when we were going to get to that point. I was like, wait.
Yeah. In fact, I actually have the CD that I heard it on in my hand. Well, this is an old CD. This is my mom's CD. Oh wow, that's a lot of dust. But first off, I do want to just give what next week will be. Next week's going to be digging a bit into musical archives to talk about a genre we both like.
Yeah, you go on with that. I have something to round off this episode quite nicely.
Oh no, you don't get to round off this episode yet, because I have... Okay, you know what, fuck it then. I have in my hands a copy of Van Halen. First album. Van Halen.
Van Halen.
It's what they named their first album. On the CD. One thing of note is this is a CD my mom has played for me for 22 years. I'm 22 years old, by the way. Possibly 23 years, give or take, depending on how months work.
Months usually work sequentially. I don't know if you're aware. Like, if you've ever seen, like, a calendar, it usually starts in January and then it usually ends in December.
Yes, but I was going to talk about Eruption, and you really got me. Because, well, they're just such... These are tracks that music of our youth. Literally, I was raised on these songs. Like, my mom played them in the womb. I grew up on Motley Crue and Van Halen. You Really Got Me and Eruption are they're the radio play tracks, but they're so good and so... The solo in Eruption. Eddie has said that he hates listening to it because he goes, oh, I could have made that tighter and sound better. And I'm just like, that's such a perfect solo. Why would you want to change anything about it? I don't know what's going on in his head. And it follows up with a really great cover of, I think, the Kinks with You Really Got Me. Still showing all the hallmarks of Eddie Van Halen's guitar. It's such a good track. Just goddamn, I don't have anything bad to say about it. It's mixed well. It's got the Van Halen brothers doing the best. I can never remember his name. The other guy playing good bass. And probably my favorite David Lee Roth performance outside of Panama and Ice Cream Man. Okay, now onward to giving what next week will be. Since we're diving a bit into the history books, we're going to be talking a bit about it, more less of just a single album or a single artist or anything, and more about a genre. Because, well, why not? And since it's my turn, the album is Nine Inch Nails' Pretty Hate Machine, released 1989. Halo 2, but the first full album. Halo 1 being the Head Like a Hole single. For those in the know enough to know what I'm talking
I will
about.
say this much: my last exposure to Nine Inch Nails was not the greatest. So.
What was it?
You know the song that's played on radios all the time.
No, I don't.
You don't? I forget what it's called. I think it's Animal. I forget if that's the name of it.
Closer.
Yeah,
And it's
Closer.
Not,
That's it.
it's not played on radios around here all the time.
No, it's played around here all the freaking time.
What? I almost chose the Downward Spiral because I think it's much more important as an album. But Pretty Hate Machine's the first, and it's really what set off the more popular eye to. Without that album, it's industrial would have pretty much just vanished as a genre.
Hmm.
It would have been like it wouldn't have just died, but no one would know about it. It'd be like I might as well just be sitting here talking about lesbians on ecstasy for as many people who'd actually know what bands I'm talking about. But yeah, that's gonna be a very interesting thing. And by the way, the Downward Spiral is the album with Closer on it. Just to point that out to you.
Yeah, I kind of gathered.
It's also got Hurt on it. The good version.
Wait, you don't like the Johnny Cash version?
No. I've gone on record saying many times that I think that it changes the meaning of the song, obviously, but it changes a bit of the lyric in a way that bothers me, and I just find it a much less impactful product. It's an old man talking about his dying regrets versus a being physically, just emotionally and physically hurt because of the loss of a loved one, which is what the original track is about. It's a much more... It resonates more with me as that than as the 70-year-old going, man, I've done a lot of stupid shit, and I regret a lot of it. Anyway, next week. Head Like a Hole, Black as Your Soul. Later.